Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm in the presence of the scholars from the edge of time. Prepare for mind-boggling and thought-blasting revelations. Greetings and welcome, Nick and Michele. How are you?
We're doing very well. We're going to have a third co-host as Cecily will make our presence known. But hi, it's good to see you. We hope you're doing awesome.
I'm doing awesome, and now that I'm speaking with you, I'm doing even more awesome.
Oh, we're humbled. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's Thursday. We actually have tomorrow off, and we're going to go on a road trip. So looking forward to getting out and seeing something different.
Where is it we're going? I keep forgetting the name. Acropolis or something?
No, it's Arco Sante.
Arco Sante. It's some sort of experimental architecture town from the 80s north of Phoenix. That's, I think they shot a really bad Italian Mad Max ripoff there, and I just don't remember it is off the top of my head. So of course we got to go check it out.
Oh, of course. It's like visiting the place where there's the biggest ball of string or the biggest hat made of tinfoil. How can you not go there?
I'm a sucker for that stuff. I like opening up Atlas Obscura, looking at the city or wherever we're at, seeing what's weird, and say, "Hey, sweetie, you wanna go visit this weird place or something?" So we've done that a couple times since we've been down here. We went to the Mystery Castle, the Flying V Cabin. There's a lot more weird stuff in Phoenix that we got to check out still.
Yeah.
None of them are a big tourist trap like Big Ball of String, though. But there are tourist traps here. I know it. There's I think back in the day, there used to be a North Pole down here that when people sent letters to Santa, it actually went to some sort of town down here. So it would be stamped as if it was going to the North Pole.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I might be conflating it maybe in New Mexico. But I think it's in Arizona. I don't know if they do that anymore, but there's seriously a North Pole town down here somewhere.
Very cool. Well, I guess that might be in our future then.
And I have something to share. Yesterday we recorded a show for and the guest was someone who has become part of the Arkham mythos. Even though it starts off as a show about witchcraft and theurgy, it soon becomes Lovecraftian, and there's a lot of arcana in there that's part of Lovecraft's mythos. So I will send you the link to that later on.
Look us up. We're all about Lovecraft scholarship and checking out new Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lovecraft stuff, we didn't get a chance to talk with you last month, so we got 2 months of catch up to do on our HP Lovecast podcast. We did an episode earlier this month where we went back and watched the 1970s Dunwich horror with Dean Stockwell. That was fun to revisit. Sandra Dee. So that's probably one of our latest Lovecraftian things that we've done is rewatching that film. I just got a nice re-release from Arrow Video earlier this year, so we are topical.
We're topical. Yeah.
Let's see. I think one of the biggest things since we've last talked is I said it came out. Now I have it in hand. Is the Gladiator book, A Hero Will Endure. Essays at the 20th anniversary Gladiator. Oh, it's a big one too. So this has I've talked about it every now and then, my essay on Gladiator and industrial music sampling, and it's finally out. Where is my essay anyway? It's somewhere in here. And there's 3 other essays in this book that cite essays from the New Peplum. So I was very excited to see that. I always get very happy when other scholars get to use the scholarship that I've either written or coordinated, if it's essays from other people. So
well, and you've had your book quoted in another collection recently.
Oh yeah. I don't have it on hand. I don't have a copy of it, but I guess a Helen of Troy book came out. It's about Helen of Troy in Hollywood. It's all the different adaptations of them. And I believe that book's not a collection like this. It's a single author one, but I think it cited 5 sections of the New Peplum, 3 essays, the afterword, and my intro. So the New Peplum is still kicking and going strong on things.
That is fantastic. And congratulations. I'm glad that the book is finally made manifest in our dimension. And
Yeah.
is it the same publisher?
Oh, actually, this was a different publisher, so I didn't edit this one. It's just an essay. Someone else edited it, but it's from a publisher called Vernon Press. I've never worked with them before, so this was the first time. And again, this book was supposed to be out 3 years ago in time for Gladiator when it turned 20. Didn't quite happen because COVID happened. So a lot of others, apparently a lot of, other scholars and whatnot that are part of that book got affected by COVID in one way or another, institutions shut down and stuff. So it really waylaid that book coming out, but it's finally out. I'm super excited. That's probably the second major contribution I can think of I've done to Peplum scholarship that I think. The next scholarship I've done is something Michele and I worked on with different essays, but we have a colleague named Simon Bacon, and he's doing a book on cats in film. And we had essays due to him at the end of March, which we turned in. I did an essay on cats in Peplum. I narrowed it down to 1960s Italian strongman films, because all those films, they show an Ursus or a Samson or a Machista, basically getting into wrestling moves with tigers and panthers and lions. And at the end of the day, they're all recreations of the Nemean lion myth. That, he chokes them, and sometimes, either the cat dies or sometimes it lives, it just got knocked out or something. But, there's quite a few of those. And so I just did a short form essay kind of cataloging all those and, saying, what happens. And I think I kind of split the essay in two halves. There's when the strongman encounters a lion in the wild. So, they come out of the cave or they're in a pit or something. And usually all those instances are, the strongman's actually saving someone. Someone else is about to get attacked by the lion. And so the strongman, saves them, and that underscores their heroism. On the other hand, all the arena scenes where the strongman fights a lion or something in an arena for someone else's entertainment, that's supposed to, undersell the spectacle of, the sword and sandal genre. So it's not exactly you saving someone, it's more of a spectacle to really, show off his strength and stuff like that. So that's what I concentrated on. That was fun to revisit a lot of those films, although to be honest, I don't like seeing lions get beat up. Some of them, it's obvious it's a dummy, like, rawr. But others, they do good enough cutting. Like, we talked about this on your show before, and we talked about Hercules and the Mongolians. He's in the prison cell and he's like, lion, and the lion's like, he's obviously scared. So those weren't fun to watch, but overall it was a fun essay to write.
Yeah, and I wrote an essay stemming from the 1999 The Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser. And since we were looking at cats, I was specifically kind of jumping off from the point of the white cat, the appearance of the white cat in the film. And there's a couple of scenes with the white cat where she scares the mummy before he's fully regenerated. And at one point, O'Connell and the rest of the party are in the Egyptian or Cairo Museum, and he's like, why does the mummy hate cats? And it's just a throwaway line, but the curator says, because, the cat is the guardian to the underworld. Well, I knew that wasn't quite true. So that was kind of an interesting jumping off point to actually discuss, the cat cult in ancient Egypt. And along the way, I actually learned that the domestication of cats played a big role of the cat cult in ancient Egypt. The cats were not, there wasn't really a beset goddess at the original pantheon of gods, I would say, like Osiris and Isis and Set and so forth. Bastet came later and came from the Delta region. And so it was really a fascinating study at the end of the day. And I'm hoping that maybe, when we have a fifth Tuesday, I'll actually discuss more about that mythology and how it kind of developed alongside the domestication of cats in ancient Egypt, because they do actually kind of complement each other. And so anyway, in my paper, I actually say that, Beset was really more a guardian of life, based on, her progress as a goddess in ancient Egypt. So it was nice to have it done. But excited. I think that book will come out, I think, early next year, but I'm not exactly sure on the publication date.
Well, when it comes out, we'll have it a prop on the show for one of those times.
Yes.
We'll be more than that. We'll celebrate both the Gladiator book and the cat book. If you send me a contact person at your publishers, I'll set it up, and we will devote episodes to this, because it's a major accomplishment, and you guys have been talking about it for a while. So let's celebrate the fact that it's here and done or on its way. So I'd be honored to do that.
Cool.
Oh, definitely. And I'm sure Simon will always take more.
Yeah,
more social media exposure. So
yeah, our colleague Simon, his forte is actually vampires. He has, dear Lord, I don't know how many vampire books he's written or edited, but this guy he knows.
He's a vampire dude.
He's a vampire
honestly.
dude.
Yeah.
Other publishing news next month, May. A new issue of Weird Tales, the legendary pulp magazine from the 20s, comes out, and I have an essay in it. I'm being published in Weird Tales. It was actually it was funny. It was like a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer. The editor, Jonathan Mayberry, author of like all the Kagan books and Joe Ledger books, he was putting together a sword and sorcery issue. And he was looking for an essayist for it, and a lot of people recommended me. And I'm like, no. My specialty is not sword and sorcery; it's sword and sandal. Different SNS. But he's like, that's all right. We're doing a cosmic horror issue. Would you want to write something on that? And I said, sure. And so wrote that in early 2022. Michele helped me a lot on researching that one. That was a tough essay. But they did a cover reveal earlier this month, so a year and some change later, it's finally coming out. I talk about the old issues of Weird Tales and the depiction of cosmic horror in it. Names right on the cover. The cover is done by Mike Mignola and it's got Hellboy on it. So I never thought I'd be on a magazine with Hellboy on the cover. So yeah.
Well, yeah.
I milestone I didn't even know I had. So excited for that.
Yeah, and I got a proof of my Bernie Wrightson article, in which I talk about his illustrations that he completed for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. And so I got my edits back in, and they have a publication date of mid-October, I think October 15th, but that'll be published by an Australian publisher. So very excited about that. It has a great cover. Got to see my name on the cover down at the bottom. Name is spelled, but they assured me it's corrected. It's always the curse when you are a 1L, Michele, not a 2L. But very excited about that. That one's been in the works for a couple of years. It was also kind of impacted by the pandemic. And then originally it was supposed to be a self-published collection of essays. And the publisher, I'm not sure how it ended up that they were aware of the project, but they reached out and they said they actually wanted to publish it. So we have a new cover done by Greg Chapman. He does a lot of covers. He's also an Australian artist and writer. So it's very exciting. I'm very, very excited about when that comes out.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the last two publication news I have is one of our colleagues who presented at our Ann Radcon conference a couple years ago reached out asking for an essay. He's putting together actually already did. It'll be issue 2, but he's put together a dark fiction horror magazine. And he's like, do you have anything for me, Nick? I'm like, sure. So I just dug up an old presentation, spiffed it up, and it's my Rene Girard analysis of Call of Cthulhu. I sent that to him of all the little graphs I drew for it. He's like, perfect. So I think that'll be published in an upcoming issue of Dead Dark Things, I think is what the magazine's called. And
I have the t-shirt.
You have the t-shirt. And then my final thing is this weekend, my call for papers for the Emmanuel movies closes. And I've got quite a few submissions to me. I want some more, so I'm crossing fingers the next 2 days I get a couple more submissions, but that will be my next book journey, an editing journey, is doing this Emmanuel book. And crossover to Sword and Sorcery, that's my disclaimer when I've been pimping this out on all the Sword and Sorcery forums, because I got to share my call for papers that Laura Gemser was in Black Emmanuel, but she was in Ator, the first Ator movie, and then Monique Gabriel, who was in Emmanuel 6, was in Deathstalker 2. So there's crossover there. But anyway, so that will be the next book I will be editing and working on. I'm doing it backwards. I actually don't have a publisher for this one because the subject matter is so niche and kind of taboo, I guess, not mainstream. It's French booby films. Come on. So I'm actually doing it backwards. I'm putting together a table of contents first with all the log lines for each of the essays. So then I will go out to a publisher and say, hey, here's my project. My current publisher, McFarlane, does have interest in it, but I do want to check some others out first for this kind of particular book. So maybe in a year or two, I'll be holding an Emmanuel book in my hands if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And my last bit of news, I'm onto a new project, that being I'm working on an essay about mummies in films.
Mm-hmm.
So particularly from the angle of vengeful undead characters. So I'll be working on that in tandem with Incantu, the mummies story arc in Marvel Supernatural Tales from I think it was 70s, early 70s.
Yeah, 70s.
So I'm also be working on that. So I'll have some fodder to share with our listeners down the road as well on that.
Incredible.
So that's our catch up. We have been busy little bees, in addition to, again, moving into the new house. Can we keep saying it's a new house? We've been here for like 5 months now, but it's still new to us. We're still buying furniture and sofas and stuff like that. So
yes, we
still settling in.
We got our futon sofa. It's so nice to have back support again.
So for today's episode, we will be talking still in the pulp type stuff. We're not, it's not sword and sorcery, but in the same way like Indiana Jones is, old gods and whatnot. We'll be talking about the Charlton Heston classic Ben-Hur. No, I'm sorry, I meant Secret of the Incas. So I'm actually will be doing an article on this movie for Exotica Moderne. It's the Tiki magazine I write for every now and then. This movie just got re-released early this year. It's actually put out by Kino, and Kino they put out a lot of the Samson movies last year, that Samson and the Seven Wonders of the World, Son of Samson, which we covered on here. So, I mean, they aren't like Criterion style releases, but, it's nice to see some older films getting some, HD love. So, so we will be talking about Secret of the Incas. So that kind of ties into, South American Inca mythology. So let's start with a little old plot. Oh, I got a long one. I wrote this a while ago, so I may have snuck some jokes in here like I usually do. So there'll be unexpected even me. Okay. Harry Steele, Charlton Heston, is a roguish adventurer based out of Cusco, Peru. He makes his living being a tour guide and romancing the ladies and doing odd jobs for the local mob boss, Ed Morgan. Ed suspects correctly, that Harry is holding onto a stone fragment that will reveal the location of a legendary Incan treasure, a gold sunburst. Harry sees an opportunity to go after the sunburst when damsel in distress Elena Ionescu arrives in town. She had fled the Iron Curtain, Romania, and wants to get to the United States. Steele uses her as bait to attract one of her pursuers and steals his small plane. Harry may or may not. He's hard to read because he's kind of a liar and a cheat and a rogue. Anyway, but damn it, he's got those Charlton Heston good looks, right? Anyway, Harry may or may not want to take Elena up north, but first he needs to make a pit stop at Machu Picchu to get his treasure. Only there's an archaeological team already there, so Harry plots to steal the treasure right from under their nose. The team uncovers a mummy/statue from the tomb under the city, which attracts thousands of other Inca ancestors. Koratika, who is an exotica singer, sings many songs in a variety of styles and sounds, and everyone is happy until they're not happy when the tomb proper is open and the sunburst isn't there. While this is going on, there's a bit of melodrama. Elena falls in love with Harry, but also with expedition leader Dr. Moorhead, who definitely loves her back. And then Ed shows up and throws things all into a mess. Elena tells Harry he's going to wind up like a bad guy like Ed. This kind of strikes a nerve of Harry, and he almost gets it. But alas, he decides to rob the tomb anyway. He sets up some lights and mirrors in the tomb, which shines a beam of light on a wall, and behind that wall is the sunburst. But Ed shows up and steals it before Harry can steal it. Then Harry confronts Ed on a cliff and steals it back, and decides to finally, he has a change of heart after he sees how much, quote, much of a crud, end quote, Ed is. Harry returns the sunburst to the Incas and the expedition, and Elena, despite Dr. Moorhead being the better person, being the better Mark Darcy in this case, she decides to run off of Daniel Cleaver instead. The end.
Wow.
I forgot I snuck a Bridget Jones's Diary reference at the end. Okay, so hi, other co-hosts, the scholars from the Edge of Time. Michele, what did you think about Secret of the Incas? Secret of the Incas.
Well, it's not a secret now.
That's right. It's not a secret. Now there's the underside cover.
Yeah. I found this to be an enjoyable film. Definitely could see how there's a lot of influence that it had over Indiana Jones or Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think it is.
Specifically,
but, yeah. The pacing was a little slower, but I did find that I think it came out in
54.
54.
Yep.
I was commenting to Nick, hey, I think that they found Machu Picchu right around that time. And so we were actually revisiting, we were listening to the commentary last night, and they did confirm that it had been a recent discovery. So this was actually the first film shot on location there, along with being they had I think the second unit shot at Cusco, Peru. So very interesting to have on location like this. So I definitely found that to be of interest to me, particularly historically. And the fact that they included so much, I think, mythology, the Inca mythology, there's added to it, there's culture there. One thing that I did find, I felt like it was done respectfully for the time. So yeah, I enjoyed the film, and it wasn't one that I was even familiar with until Nick mentioned, hey, let's watch this one.
Yeah, it hit my radar because I was actually looking up, I can never say her name right, Yuma Sumac, just on a random thing for some other tandem, because I listen to a lot of exotica records, the Les Baxter and, all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, she was in a movie. Oh, called Secret of the Incas. Oh, it influenced the Raiders Lost Ark. Oh, it just is getting a re-release in a month from now. So it kind of just dominoed into that, into let's check this movie out. I did enjoy it. It is slow though. It's not like, again, it predates Indiana Jones by like 30 some odd years. by then, we're in blockbuster territory with a bit more action cutting and a bit more, over the top, action adventure and whatnot. This is 50s, so it's a bit more on the melodrama side between there's a lot of
was on that,
sure. There's a lot of hugging and kissing and soft focus on the lady, like you do. But I did enjoy it though, especially towards the end where you definitely see the Raiders of the Lost Ark parallels when like he's in the tomb and setting up the lights. But growing up for me, back in high school and even middle school, I took a lot of Spanish classes, and even though my Spanish is rubbish, my teacher, Miss Markin, who passed away a while ago, I found out. But man, she went to Machu Picchu, and she had slides, because this is how long ago she went. She didn't have photos
with the carousel machine and stuff. Got it.
Oh man, so we every year she'd bring out the Machu Picchu slides, and I'm trying to make this into a joke. I don't mean to, but it was very old school. But on the other hand, that was my exposure to Inca, but greater. We did Aztecs, we did Olmecs. A lot of South American, Latin American, Mayan. Units and stuff while learning, Spanish. But anyway, she actually went to Machu Picchu, and, I got to see, slides from like the 70s or early 80s from it. So that memory kind of stuck with me. And so, those dig up those memories. So, but other than that, this is definitely a very old school film. This is made before Charlton Heston did 10 Commandments, and before he did Ben-Hur, before he became the big sword and sandal, historic epic, because he wasn't an Italian film, star that he was. And I'm not the biggest Charlton Heston fan, but, I think he's fine in it. He does have some, since this is the 50s, around that time, I think writing was a little bit more sharp, because like a lot of like lines are like one line zingers. Like you watch, like,
had quite a few of those.
Oh yeah, this is definitely written not like for like how normal people talk. This is written for repartee. It's like when you watch Gold Diggers at 34, where every line is just a zinger at someone else. This movie has a lot of that.
Yeah, and him being kind of, he's meant to be kind of the anti-hero that has a change of heart at the end. But he obviously is a ladies' man as well, and he does charm all the women on the tour. And
one of the zingers is one of the ladies doesn't want to pay him, but he wants to get paid, and he says something like, money sings and I love music, or something like that. It's these hammy one-liners that are written into, when there's not an action sequence going on, you're just riveted by what are they going to say next?
Yeah, and some of them are kind of like almost snide remarks.
Oh yeah,
they're kind of like, whoa, that's pretty, I don't know, kind of harsh, to hear that kind of zinger that happens in the movie. But
so I want to get into real quick why my big interest in the film is because of this person. And that's Uma Sumac. I'm definitely saying her name wrong, but we're going to go with it. So she is an exotica singer. She's actually from Peru. So this is, an instance where, instead of like, what's the term? Not whitewashing. I guess it's whitewashing, but, they actually cast a person from the country in the country they're shooting at, because she was a Peruvian singer, and she had, like, I don't know a lot about singing, but her singing style was a lot of like bird call, I guess, and very both low and high, very all over the place.
Yeah, like she would sing different tones, and like the fellow on the commentary last night was saying is that she could sing a 5-octave range, which is very incredible. So she might be in a lower tonality and then hit something very high. And so it was not what you would typically think of as music, and yet it was very engaging to hear. It was like very exotic, which I thought was really interesting. And they actually recorded it separately from, you know, where she was at in the movie.
Well, they used 3 tracks from her debut album, which is this, and, you know, slid them into the movie, which is I think a good way to go. Like, hey, if you like that, I got a record, baby.
Yeah.
But, you know, this was, you know, at the time when exotica music was taking off. Les Baxter and Martin Denny are, you know, the big two who did exotica music. Les Baxter actually did the music for this while she did all the singing. And so this was, you know, my original interest is because I collect exotica things and tiki things. And as a side note, we, on our HP Lovecast podcast, like a year ago or so, we did an episode by, oh man, I keep forgetting that guy's name. The guy who wrote about dolphins.
James Wade.
James Wade. He did a story about like 1960s San Francisco music scene, and the narrator in that talks about Yuma Sumac, but he says very disparaging remarks about her. And I'm like, I gotta stand up for her because she is awesome. So anyway, she has a substantial, you know, she's not the main lady lead in this film. But one of the, you know, more higher up characters. She has 3 musical sequences. You know, she's kind of like the archaeological team's like caretaker, I guess.
She seemed like a caretaker. I don't want to say she was a maid,
No.
but she definitely was, you know, a higher status. Obviously, she was respected for, you know, who she was within the village. And so she was part of the archaeological dig. And then there was another fellow that was kind of representing the village. He's actually, I forgot what
he was I think he was an American.
I think he was an American. I'm not sure if he was Native American, but he's played like Native American roles, and he played a Peruvian villager. He looked the part, you know, so he kind of had oversight and understood like the mythology. So he would bring things in, and it was very interesting to show an archaeological dig where you had Native people that were actually integral to the excavation,
and not just like grab a shovel and dig.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think back to, you know, Howard Carter, even though he, you know, from what we read, he had a respect for the various people, Native people that were working with him or for him. In this particular instance, the portrayal is that they're very much a part of it, and they're subject matter experts.
Well, they're also there like uncovering, they want to uncover the sunburst, they want to uncover the mummy, which I already forgot what it's called.
She was I think she was the princess of the tomb. So you do get that representative of a mummy, although she's still fairly wrapped
Mama
up.
Kuna, that's what it was. The Mama Kuna.
Was that what her name was?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, they're uncovering these for Peru. You know, this isn't like, you know, even though like the expedition's led by the guy from Fathers Knows Best, you know, they aren't taking these artifacts back to America. Robert Young. They're not taking these artifacts back to like America or Europe. You know, they're uncovering them for the country they're in, rather than, you know, Indiana Jones of, I'm going to uncover this ark and now it's going to rot in a warehouse.
I do kind of wonder if that marks kind of a change in ideology with regards to archaeological digs. So I'm kind of curious by that, and that's going to be something I'll have to research later and maybe revisit that down the line.
Because that's a big thing right now. Other countries having other countries' artifacts and they want them back, even though they've had them for 100 years. Like, hey, that really belongs over here type stuff.
I could add something there. With Greeks, one of the instances of that is with the Elgin marbles.
Yep.
And we want them back because they belong in Greece. And arguments that have been put forth by those that currently hold on to them in the United Kingdom is that the Greeks that are in Greece now aren't the real Greeks. They're not the same as the Greeks of antiquity, so these don't belong to them anyway. Or the Greeks wouldn't know what to do with them, which which is again, ludicrous.
I gotta say, you know what that argument sounds like? That's like a ship of thesis argument. Like those Greeks now aren't the same Greeks as before because time goes on and we're swapping new people out for other people and having kids and all that stuff. So they're using a very Greek argument to say you can't have your Greek things back.
And I would counter that. Well, let's do the ancestry DNA. We'll show you how close we are to the ancestors, the Greek ancestors with these elephants. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I mean, I think Dr. Hawaz is a huge mouthpiece for, wanting to bring things back to Egypt, and so, yeah, he's been able to get some things back, but there's other pieces that are still out there that they definitely want. And of course, how many private collections that are out there that have pieces that are not even public that could help. I have always thought that, like with the Egyptian stuff, that if we had an online repository of all that information, how much more knowledge we could gain from having all those pieces to actually interact with it virtually, because you want them to be safe. But man, the kind of knowledge you could come away with by having that information, readily available instead of hidden away in storage rooms and things like that.
Well, on the subjects of archaeology and storage rooms, I think the big elephant in the room is the Indiana Jones references here. So the obvious thing is put forth is that this movie is a big influence on Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, the guy who did the commentary last night said it's half true, but there's a whole bunch of other films that were coming out around the time that Raiders of the Lost Ark borrowed from so much, especially from the pulps and whatnot. Now, I get that, but I think we do want to point out the fairly obvious connections here. The first one being the get-up, the attire of Charlton Heston in this is like a one-to-one match to Dr. Jones, fedora, leather jacket, satchel. He does look like a proto Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and I actually went digging and I did find a interview with the costume designer from 2005. So I'm going to rebut a little bit about that commentary last night.
Do it.
Who said that, well, that's only a small part. Her name is Deborah Neidelman. And again, like I said, she was the costume designer. And this
for Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Yes,
okay.
For Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so she was asked, where did the inspiration for Indy's fedora, leather jacket, satchel, and whip come from? Secrets of the Incas, 1954, starring Charlton Heston and directed by Jerry Hopper, is almost a shot-for-shot Raiders of the Lost Ark. Since both were made by Paramount and Secret is no longer available on video. Now remember, she's speaking back in 2005. I can only guess that Larry Kasdan took that script and updated it for Steven. A great idea. We did watch this film together as a crew several times, and I always thought it strange that the filmmakers did not credit it later as inspiration for the series. Raider stands on its own as a modern classic, but the fedora jacket and whip are right there on Charlton Heston in 1954. My own work is not diminished by having seen that marvelous film. The spirit of Raiders was also informed by Alan Ladd's 1940s film noirs, which also had the same hard-boiled adventurer clad in leather jacket and felt fedora. I have just seen Secrets of the Incas again at the Eastman House in Rochester, and it really helped refresh my memory. Harrison's Indiana is really a kinder and gentler Harry Steele. Heston's archaeologist adventurer. Heston's fedora is considerably bigger and more unwieldy, and that for sure is the case.
He's always adjusting it.
Yeah, and always going back on his head and stuff like that. Compared to the one that she designed for Indiana, that looks practically like a picture hat. So yeah, she definitely gave a lot of nods to Secret of the Incas.
I would say the other in my notes I have here, aside from Indiana Jones, we're talking Harrison Ford in this film. That Harry Steele is more on the. He looks like Indiana Jones, but acts more like Han Solo in his. I'm more concerned about money and getting paid and having a little bit of adventure and stuff. And, Han Solo was. He was a rogue, a rogue that eventually came around as our pulpy hero, Harry Steele, which, come on, that name. I mean, come on, it has a pun. His last name's Steele. That's what he does. He steals. It is the perfect detective pulp noir name. The other scene that gets a lot of Raiders Lost Ark love is the climactic ending when he's in the tomb and he sets up the mirrors and he shines a flashlight and it shows all the beams to where the sunburst is. And that's, in Raiders Lost Ark where he takes the scepter, he puts it like in the ground and the sun comes through and shines, the light on the wall where I believe that's where the Ark is. It's been a while since I've seen Raiders Lost Ark.
Yes. It when it hits that pinnacle and it actually shows where the Ark's supposed to be. Yeah.
I'd say the other thing, it's more of a background in this one, but Indiana Jones, especially the original three, we haven't seen any of the ones since the original three, but the global enemy is the Nazis in that one. Since this is 1954, there's no more Nazis, but it does have the shadow of communism in the background as kind of the bad guys here. I mean, they're not after treasure or anything. There is a communist agent that's coming to take Elena back to Romania. So there is that, other, presence of, global politics in the background that is more in the forefront in Indiana Jones. Obviously, we want the Ark so we can take over the world. We need the chalice of Jesus. I forget what that's called in the last movie, Last Crusade, to take over the world. And this one's like, we just need to take this femme fatale back to Romania. But it's still an adversarial character. It does show that there is some greater intrigue going on, and Harry Steele's intrigue is just a small part of a bigger thing. I think I'm just gonna say it. Michele Polygraphy. The coolest thing about this movie, it isn't the romance, it isn't the Indiana Jones references, it isn't that it's an old school pulp adventure. It is the first 30 seconds when they show these they show these trains. Charlton Heston is in this train that's one car. There's no engine, there's no caboose. It's like a San Francisco trolley car, just zipping through the mountains on its way to Cusco. And even the commentator is like, that thing's so cool. And it is. The movie you never see it again, except for the first couple of shots of the film. But yeah, they call it a doodle bug. It's this little tiny cute train that these tourists are on going beep beep. And that is the best part of the film.
It is. It was really cute, and I thought it was something that was just made for the film, but I think it actually was something that did exist and did operate, and was a part of that time.
We need more of those.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to think. For people that are interested in the costumes were really beautiful for the time period. I believe Edith Ed was the costume designer for this film. So anybody that follows her costuming, I think she did for like 7 decades or something like that. A very long period of time.
The costumes are beautiful, but you have your femme fatale trudging through the jungle and the mountains wearing heels and a skirt.
Well, I was watching the scene where she has her suitcase with her. She just changed to a lower heel. Let's just be truthful there, instead of the big tall one.
So I guess it's not as bad as Jurassic Park Dominion or whatever it is where the lady in the high heels go to the mud.
Yeah. Now I think we should talk about Elena for a little bit because okay, yes, he has a crush, but
so sweet.
She is kind of that usual, woman in distress. So she plays kind of a typical character, but she's got a little bit of an exotic look to her. She's French. And
French in real life, but Romanian in the film.
Yeah, but she was not someone that I was familiar with. And I don't know if this was, I can't recall if this was like one of her first roles.
I think it was.
So.
But yeah, she adds the femme fatale / femme fragile element to it. You know, she puts on the waterworks, but you know, she's fake crying because she, you know, trying to woo, you know, charm Harry Steele, but you know, you can't beat that guy at his own game. But you know, she's like the love interest of a couple characters. You know, there's, you know, I made the Bridget Jones's Diary joke at the end, but that's what it comes down to. There's the better man for her, which is the leader of the expedition, and Charlton Heston, who's a no good guy, even though he has a change of heart. Let's be honest, she probably should have went with the other guy who would have taken care of her and made her successful. But you know what? Charlton Heston's still the anti-hero. That hero is still part of anti-hero. She's got to be in his arms. And I think she could have done better. Go with the guy from Father's Knows Best.
Yeah, Robert Young. So yeah, and I mean, he even offers to me. So she wants to get to the U.S. And Charlton Heston is like, oh yeah, I can, you know, I'll take you there, but we've got to make this stop, like Nick was saying. And then she meets the Robert Young character, and you know, he falls for her, and he even offers to marry her, to take her, because I mean, she's honest. She does tell him that, you know, she's trying to get to the U.S.
That she used to be a prostitute.
Yeah, she lays it all on the table, and
which is not something you say in the 50s back then. Because
no.
Scarlet Letter right there.
Yeah, but yeah, because Heston has that change of heart and brings the sunburst back. That was it.
You know, she gets robbed of a scene because she's actually a capable person, but you know, they just didn't show that stuff back then. Like, you know, Heston's plan is the Romanian ambassador has flown into town. They need to steal his plane, but in order to steal his plane, they need the keys, and the keys are in his room. So he sends her to steal the keys, which she does, but it occurs all off screen. She just comes back, I got the keys, easy peasy. And I'm like,
yeah, because he actually tells her that she has to go out on her balcony, shimmy the ledge to get into the other guy's room, so that she can steal the keys out of his coat pocket, return to her room, and pack and get ready to go.
I think they could have put a scene like that in the film, you know, to give her,
that would have shown strength.
That would have. So. And this is still old school conservatism going on here, but you know, she has opportunities, at least in the background, that she was more than just a femme fragile, that she is I mean, you know, the other thing to imply is she's able to get all the way from Romania to Peru basically on her own and get it by. So she does have some wits to her. It's just, you know, the focus is still on Charlton Heston.
Yeah, and I think it's more implied, like that subtle power, you know, woman's ingenuity, but it's done subtly because, I mean, you wouldn't want to rock the patriarchal, you know, ideology that existed at the time. So
I'd say the last 2 points I have is, you know, the movie shot on location in Peru, in the cities down there. Cusco is portrayed a lot like a Casablanca or a Cairo. You know, there's police and tourists and assassins. So, you know, and seedy bars. So it does have that, you know, film noir pulp feel to it. And within those seedy bars, I do want to point out that they do bring out the cocktail of Peru, which is the pisco sour. They order a couple of them, and that makes me happy because I do enjoy a good pisco sour. I have a nice bottle of pisco in the other room. In fact, after watching the movie, I actually made one or two. It's not my favorite drink. I'm more of an amaretto sour than a pisco sour, but it was nice to see some, you know, cocktail love, especially a cocktail that is from that country in the movie.
Yeah, I think that gave you more of a tie than you would normally have.
See me.
Bless you. Then maybe some other people would have, like, I mean, I think I've sampled a pesco sour before, and I don't remember what it tastes like. But for someone who's really into tiki or into drinks, you'd have that extra connection, because one of the characters, they're sitting around the table, and they're getting drunk off these. Well, the one guy is. Nobody else is drinking, but he doesn't recognize that.
Oh, they play that high altitude card a lot.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, all that is little details that I think add to the film. It could have just been a more generic film, but I think they do take into account, hey, we're in a foreign country, foreign city that's high up. They have different cultures and everything. Well, let's make, like you said, be kind of a little honoring of that. And, those add details to make it better than just a normal adventure pulp.
Yeah, and I would say along with that, the fact that because it was shot on location, you get insight into an area that at the time, most Americans would have never seen, probably didn't even hear of. So, this is giving an early insight into an area that wouldn't have had a lot of Western culture influence at the time. So I think that's kind of a testament and an interesting document of that time.
I think even the commenter pointed out cinema at the time was hungry for, globe-trotting and adventures. There's jungle films and stuff out there, and here's one in Peru that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, what one of the things that I learned from that, and I wasn't familiar with this, Hercules, maybe you've heard of it, or maybe Brian has brought it up in his conversations, but back at the time when this movie came out, there was actually kind of a shortage of films at the time. So they actually moved up the release date of this film to kind of fill one of those voids, a lack of movies that were out at the time. And I think it just kind of surprises me, because I always, see Hollywood of not being at a loss for having films. So I thought that was actually an interesting fact that I was not familiar with. You're at Brian's drive-in.
I'm curious, Secret of the Incas is not at Brian's drive-in. So Brian Walker, if you're out there, you need to update your website. This is a movie that belongs in the drive-in website.
I think it does. Yeah.
I will let him know if he's not watching. I will inform him.
Well, that's all I have.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple of things, and that's more of the people that were in the film is kind of one of the things that the commentator commented on last night was the fact that you have a lot of character actors, and so people that were going to the cinema at the time would recognize a lot of these other faces, and I think I was. Although I'm not that old, but I do recognize a few faces. And so one of them was Marion Ross. She played Miss Morse. She's the one that didn't want to pay Mr. Steele his money. And he was like, but I want to hear the music.
And that was Happy Days lady, right?
Yeah, okay. Marion Cunningham from Happy Days. The fellow that played Anton Marchu, I think Austrian who comes into Cusco looking for Romanian, the Romanian, that was played by Leon Askin. And for anybody that probably recognizes, even though he's 20 years younger at the time, that was Hogan Heroes General Burkhalter. So he was in Hogan's Heroes for 6 years. And then Mrs. Winston, who was the perpetual flirt on the most current tour that Charlton Heston was managing. She was apparently an inspiration for Lois Lane by the comic book writer Jerry Siegel. And she also played Torchy Blaine, who was a reporter in Warner Brothers films from 37 to 39. So it was the role that she was playing in those films during that time period that led this fellow to say, that looks like my Lois Lane. So I just thought those were kind of, interesting little tidbits that we came across in watching the film. So it's always kind of neat when you see a face and you're like, oh man, they look so young, and because you know them from much later.
You said Torchy, and all of a sudden I put two and two together. I actually have a an anthology of Torchy comics, I believe. I was like,
oh, okay.
I'll have to refine that.
Well, I guess that was based on a comic.
Yeah, it's
Torchy Blaine.
I am certain I have that.
Well,
for other time.
For another time. But that's I think
I think
my points.
I dug it. Again, slow, but as movies were back then, you know, if you approach it more as a pulp film noir, I think instead of, oh, this is, hardcore Indiana Jones, it's tapered off a bit. But if you approach it from more of a Casablanca Maltese Falcon sort of way, it fits those buckets a little bit more. But I dug it. I dug, listening to Umak Sumak in it. Yay. So I was a happy camper. I had my pisco sours, I had my music, I had my adventures. I was a happy camper.
And
wow, awesome. Very comprehensive and very thorough and multi-layered. And now I want to see the movie if I haven't seen it before. And I'm sure I've seen it at one point or another. I'd like to see it again.
Well, it's actually it was only on film. It never got apparently a VHS release or a DVD release or a Laserdisc release. You either A, caught it on TV, or B, waited until 2023, 70 years later, for it to finally come out. So it's been, I guess, at the time it was, a big deal. It came out and then it just faded in a time because, come on, who remembers, Charlton Heston for Secret of Incas?
Yeah.
But
it's a great restoration. It's a beautiful looking film, and definitely worth the watch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And how can people enter the world of the scholars from the edge of time?
Ladies first.
Well, I have a website, Michele with one L, Brittany. .com, and then you can look at my author page that's over at Amazon, which will be getting an update with some new book stuff later this year.
And I'm at nickdiak.com. I have actually been on a roll. I think I've had 4 consecutive weeks of writing new articles for my website. I've done some interviews, some cocktails, so gotta keep the machine running. I just did some interviews with some cosmic horror authors for the new Weird Tales coming out. I got an interview coming out on authors of heavy music mothers, moms who also did listen to heavy. But yeah, that's at nickdiak.com. All my news is there, writing is there, a giant podcast index where you can find Michele and I, and also our Scholars from the Edge of Time appearances. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and I'm glad we caught up, and I'm glad that you continued with this because last time we weren't able to do the show, so I'm glad to have experienced it today. I look forward to our next show already, and I look forward to more news on Facebook of all your many accomplishments. And again, you guys are awesome, and thank you so very much for hosting the show.
Well, thanks for having us on. We always appreciate it. It's always good to see you, sir.
Thank you so much, Hercules. I echo Nick's sentiments, and congratulations on all the things that you're working on.
Thank you very much. And now it's time to bid everyone adieu. And this show will be up by midnight tomorrow, the latest.
Cool.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Then joyous